reenactment of Simon's arrival at the evil lair, same location. This is out in this men's club, this kind of Hong Kong version of the Playboy Club. There was actually a critique. I remember somebody reading an online criticism. Somebody said, well, why didn't Sammo's character call for more henchmen to replace the ones killed by Simon Yam? In fact, in the original version, he did just that. And there's a deleted scene that you'll be able to see elsewhere on the disc of Donnie coming in and taking out those guys before he gets to fight with Sammo. But it's true, in the final cut, you have to wonder why Sammo's alone, seeing as he's a gang boss, and he would probably have called for more henchmen, but at the end they felt it disturbed the flow of the action. The bag there's actually on a wire so that it will land at the appropriate place just in front of Sammo. And this is actually one of the few CGI shots in the film. CGI done by Koan Hoi, somebody who's worked a lot with Choi Hart. So that knife flying off there was CG. This was the end of the first trailer for the movie. I thought it was the best trailer ending I've ever seen, with these two guys squaring off, and everybody was like, stop, play the film now. We want to see them go at it. People have waited years to see Donnie versus Sammo. And it's just great to see these two generations collide. Sammo gracefully allowed Donnie to choreograph the sequence. Donnie showing off this amazing kicking techniques that he's rightfully known for. The other thing that he brought in here, which I thought was something everybody's kind of reacted well to, is acknowledging the fact that in the martial arts world there's been this huge step forward in terms of mixed martial arts, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, the rise of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And he actually, a number of his students, particularly John Salviti in LA, are people who've actually been training and researching that art, and they'll bring that to Donnie and show him the movements, and he's figured out how to make them look exciting on camera. What's interesting, you look at the slow move of the camera. The guys are working very frenetically within the frame, but you don't need the camera to be jerking around like Bourne Identity style. You can actually have these slow, classical camera movements, or as here, you just pretty much keep the camera steady, let the action actors move. And of course, you can do that in Hong Kong because our guys actually can move. In America, I think the jittery camera, a lot of times, is there to disguise the fact that the American performers, unfortunately, are not as adept in action as their Hong Kong counterparts. But this is like an amazing sequence. It manages simultaneously to combine quite realistic grappling movements that you might see in an actual contest with this kind of wire-inspired work that is more, I would say, Hong Kong style. But it's got the blend, and there's never a moment, I think, when you feel it goes too far in either direction. I think it's really inspired that you get this kind of break in the combat and you pull back to this master shot to see the relation between the two guys. In the old days, you would again, it shows Hong Kong martial art fight choreography progressing. I mean, that it's actually evolving. And it's not just a case of let's recreate what we used to do back in the 70s and the 80s. In those days, in the finale, it would be two guys used to fight till one killed the other. Here, what they're trying, and I think pretty much succeeding, is to bring in a dramatic element to the fight, so that there's simultaneously this whole drama about the wife and child arriving downstairs, that they're going to come up, what's going to happen, and so there's kind of like an extra dimension to the combat between these two men. And I don't know that necessarily that's something you would have seen in the fantastic action pictures back in the 70s and the 80s. They were like really going in a different direction. But I think it's really gratifying to see filmmakers like Wilson, like Donnie, who are not just saying we have to do something as good as has gone before, but rather we have to do something that is now, which is in some ways different from and maybe better than what has gone before. And unfortunately, I hear a lot of the fans say to me, why can't it be just like in the 70s and the 80s? And I say, well, I'd like it to be like now, if the cinema could actually be evolving and moving forward from what we have already and going in new directions. And I think SPL really, in terms of its balance of drama and action, and in terms of the style of action that we're seeing here with the jiu-jitsu being applied in this way, I sent a DVD to Richard Norton, who's a good friend of mine, somebody who's worked with Samo on a number of action films in Hong Kong. And Richard's trained for many years in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with the Machado brothers. And he was knocked out by the way they had actually applied Jiu-Jitsu on film. And also, of course, they allowed space for Donnie to show off his trademark kicks, for which he's rightly famous. This is a great finishing move. This is so unreal it becomes real again. As Samo used to have Richard Norton say in the old days, painful. That's quite a landing. And all of this stuff brought into this real location up in China, all the breakaways and everything. So they got to completely re-outfit the place, put lights up and everything. So they treated it pretty much like a film studio. And my goodness, they used it to good effect for that incredible final duel. Full respect to Donnie, full respect to Samo for pulling that out. Great way to end the movie. And every time this film has been played in festivals or in Hong Kong, people have been knocked out by the end fight. And here's another unwarranted bit of product placement. This for Beef Eater Gin. I don't know how the Beef Eater Gin people feel about this being the beverage of choice of somebody who's just killed a gangster boss. In China, there's big issues about killing police officers, policemen being killed in films, people getting away with breaking the law. So the movie ends here on the China version. They actually cut round about this point, and that's the end of the film. And obviously, we're seeing here the full, longer cut. And one thing actually that's been mentioned as a blooper is the fact that if you look at the soles of Donnie's shoes during the scene when he's fighting Samo, he's obviously wearing sneakers, and actually the sneakers are a very distinctive yellow pattern on the sole. And that's kind of unfortunate because I think throughout the fight he's swapping back and forward between wearing sneakers for some scenes and wearing leather shoes for others. But in the sequence, I actually, having heard about it, went through the fight to see, and it's actually not that obvious when you actually see the fight itself. But in this moment that's coming up now, when you see him go through the window in this green screen shot, if you look at his shoes then, he's changed back to the leather shoes, and if you go back and look at the fight, he's in the sneakers. But hey, it's only a movie. This is, again, one of the few green screen shots, one of the few effect shots in the film, and he's falling a long way because he's falling out of the window in Guangzhou and he's landing back on Lam Hing Street in Kowloon Bay. I was actually working on another movie with Samo after he'd finished SPL, and he hadn't seen SPL, and I saw it early on, and I remember him asking me, and I was quite touched that he asked me. He said, did I think he went over in the final scene? Like, over is like an English term that's been adopted in the industry to mean somebody someone's overacting, somebody who's going over the top. And he felt he had gone over in this moment when he reacts to the fact that he's just inadvertently killed his wife and child. And I told him, I said, totally not. I mean, everybody's been blown away by your performance in general and this particular scene. And I think anybody who's, been an actor at any level would look at this and go, this is, again, a very, very hard scene to play, because it's like, how do you react to the unimaginable? And there's a tendency to do a big histrionic song and dance number. And what I think is the truth of it is that a lot of the times when somebody experiences something as utterly devastating as this, parts that they just shut down. And you don't get those outbursts that you always see people do in movies and on soap operas. It becomes much more, and Samo really found the truth of the scene and the truth of the moment, which is why I think makes it particularly affecting. That and the fact